Okay, we're recording.
Okay, good. I'm sorry that we missed all the mom Bob conversation, but we'll just have to let that go. So, so we're on Snapchat.
Yes. Oh, and dude, I'm just so sorry. You thought I went in the woods, got eaten by a bear, but I have just been, ever since we recorded Thursday, I've been going nonstop. And,
I figured, but you're always so responsive. Do you know what I mean? You're always like, which is a curse, I'm sure, for you.
Well, I literally had no cellular service. So I went, this past weekend, went camping with my Girl Scouts out in Nowheresville, Tennessee. Middleton, Nowhereton, Tennessee. And it was so much fun. But literally from Friday afternoon till Sunday, I had almost zero cell service. I had just as much cell service as I had sleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't because girls were up and talking and stuff. It's just, it was humid and, the tree frogs are screaming. And, I think I get about 4 hours of sleep cumulatively over 48 hours. So Monday I was a zombie.
I bet you were. Oh, I totally get it. I was sort of like, I'm chill on the weekend. And then Monday comes around and I'm like, I haven't heard from her. I don't even know how to get a hold of her husband. Oh my God, is she okay? The tree frogs ate her.
Oh my gosh. My girls were telling stories at night, and Sophia told one about Bigfoot, and they started telling stories about Bigfoot, and then she started telling one about big hands. And they're just dying laughing because they never thought about Bigfoot, big hands. But at the end of the stories, they always ran into me, and I beat them up, and I was like, yeah. And then they ran into Miss Shawn, which is what the other girls call me. And Miss Shawn put a smack down on them. So you really get to understand what these girls think of you. They start putting you in the stories. So it was good. They had a great time.
I don't know if I'd want to know.
Great. It was great.
Okay, so I've been editing the Koscoski stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, we had so much fun all over social media with that yesterday. The people weighing in on his stuff. I mean, he's got such a great crowd, But we've come up with 3 themes. I think we're just going to do like the Koscoski series of the short cuts, because he's got some really great themes. Like one of them that I pulled out that I loved that I didn't really catch while we were doing it is, if you're in your 20s right now, you're like 25, you can be doing things right now, thinking about where you'll be when you're 35, where you're no longer begging for business and people are coming to you. And that was a theme that piece together, it just pulls out beautifully. So that's going to be one of them. And then, there's going to be some really tactical stuff about social selling that we hadn't thought of.
Right.
And then I just loved how he answered the question about like, what's the future of the phone? So we've got 3 really, really good pieces out of that. So it's going to, I anticipate that I'll be able to get one done a little bit this weekend, although I'm traveling to Vegas next week. So
Vegas. Awesome. What's taking you to Vegas?
There's a conference there for small, medium businesses that I'm going, and Melinda's speaking. So I'm gonna go for that. Yeah. So anyway, good on you for getting Jack Kosakowski. He's amazing. Oh,
he's great. He's approachable. I think that underscores the beauty of social media. I mean, that's how I met him. I met him on Twitter, and or via email on Twitter and Facebook, and that's the beauty of social media. It's not a silver bullet, it's a silver lining. We need to like make a graphic or a meme or whatever that. It's a silver lining, and that you can have conversations one-on-one with people you've never met before. It's awesome. So
it is. It's amazing. And one of the guys that was interacting with us was an account executive. And I was like, and he was so great. He connected me on LinkedIn, and, he was just so appropriate. And I'm like, okay, I'm putting you in my phone for when I get into a selling crisis and I need, like, wow, you would do that. Like, we all need our tribes. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There is nobody that's got it all figured out. So
no, despite what some people might tell you or have you think, this is I like the idea of a sales community that is helpful to each other, not that's preaching to each other, but that's helpful to each other. I think there's enough people preaching, preach, but I think that we all have to be honest. I'm looking for honesty to say, I don't have it figured out. this is the way I did it yesterday. I fell down. I'm going to get back up. This is what I learned. And gosh, that's so refreshing too.
Yeah, totally. Well, before we get started, can you show our binge watching audience that last headshot that Kim took of you? I just think it's so fantastic. And then everybody has to go check out our Facebook pages for the really, really fun SellOut show.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, so we did a photo shoot. This is me.
I think it's so great. And it still looks professional.
Yes, I'm wearing a dress, so it's all good.
So it's all good. A dress and jewelry. So what do you want to talk about today, Ms. Shawn Dianna?
Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. We've touched on this subject just a little bit before, but I want to talk about negotiation because I just came up with a client yesterday. We were talking about negotiation. So I want to talk about your thoughts on it. I'll give you my thoughts from the consultant point of view. And I just think that there's, you've got so many businesses out there, so many sellers out there that have some wiggle room in what they're negotiating and need to know how to handle this, because I think a lot of people handle it badly. I think even the corporate, the corporate training and the corporate, I don't think they're equipping their sellers necessarily with the right way to handle negotiation, or the tools or the mindset and the skills and the practice to handle negotiation. So not all of them, but I'm just thinking, if you need some help in negotiation, let's have this conversation.
Well, I think it's hot. I mean, if that's the only thing we talked about for this one, it would be really great. And I can't believe you brought that up, because the book that I'm reading right now, have you heard of it, by Chris Voss, V as in Victor, OSS? It's called Never Split the Difference.
Ooh, okay.
And it's a book about negotiation that I learned about. Will Barron, I don't know how Will Barron got this guy on his podcast, but he is an FBI negotiator with hostage situations. And I'm going to get all the facts wrong, but he was like one of the only guys that was allowed to do international terrorist hostage negotiations. And he's kind of like, all that stuff that's in negotiations and books, and he beats the Harvard guys, because he's like, that's all academic. He's like, but when it comes down to real world, where the stakes are high and you can't give anything up, and you can't give them a lot of, you can't actually give them something of substance. It's not like, hey, you've got 4 hostages, we'll take 2, you keep 2, and all's good, like, and every chapter starts with a hostage situation.
Oh,
and he demonstrates negotiating tactics. So
that sounds great.
Let's just make this one about negotiation, and if we want to do another one, we can.
Let's do it.
Okay, I'll kick us off.
All right.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the SellOut Show, where we are always sold out. I am Dianna Guerin, and I am the Irreverent Sales Girl, where my mission is to bring a dash of dignity to the art of selling.
Hey, Dianna. Hi, everyone. I'm Shawn Carol Sandy. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of the Selling Agency, where we coach humans how to sell to other humans, because selling like the Wolf of Wall Street will come back and bite you in the butt.
Coupling on the Bigfoot experience of the girl. Yeah, I thought you got eaten by a wolf this weekend. Anyway. Good.
The last thing that wolf ate.
It's like, she's too much for me. That's so funny. So what do you want to talk about today? I'm so excited about our show today.
Okay. I want to tee this up to talk about negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I spend a lot of time with my sellers in the early stages of the funnel. Because right now, honestly, it's the hardest place. It's getting people's attention. It's, getting in people's monkey sphere, which we need to talk about the monkey sphere at some point in time. We haven't talked about that, have we?
No, I can't even imagine what the monkey sphere is.
Okay. Well, but we haven't really spent a lot of time on this piece of it, but I think that there's a lot of different products, a lot of different sellers and situations where they need to protect margin, or, you're especially in these, if you're falling into this trap and you're really in a commodity industry, you've got to figure out, how do I protect margin? How do I earn customers without giving up price? So negotiation is really important. And I know you've got some really special things you want to talk about negotiation.
Well, it's just so funny that you brought it up, because we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the book that I happen to be reading is this really hot negotiation book, and I'll share that with you, but we'll share that tidbit. So tell me where you want to start with negotiation. What did you run into with your training, and what are people doing, and what could they be doing better?
Well, so this came up and specifically with a client, excuse me, who's in the recruiting business. So I have clients who are in non-traditional sales roles. Don't get me wrong, they're selling, they're in sales
Oh
roles,
yeah, they're selling.
but non-traditional sales roles. So, he said, I have a guy who was on the phone with one of his clients, and the client said, let me tell you, and this is very nice of the client. The client said, let me tell you what your bonehead competitor did, which is always a great, that's a buying signal, right?
I love customers like that. They're my favorite people.
When your customer's calling your competitor a bonehead. Well, so let's just tee it up. So they're in the recruiting industry, and the recruiting industry, on average is about 20%. So if you place a candidate, you get about 20% of their, first year annual salary, whatever. And there's some room for negotiation. Some firms will do 15%. My client does 25%. They're on the premium end of this. They have, a premium service. They have more qualified recruiters. They do more vetting. It's just that they really do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So, when they get customer pushback, they have to know how to do that and not cave and not, say, oh, okay. The customers will say, oh, your competitor's doing 20%. I'll do 20%. So this guy said, this is what your bonehead competitor did.
Okay. I can't wait.
He said, yes, our fee is, 25%. He said, well, is that the best you can do? He said, well, we can go to 20% and we can spread it out over 3 payments. And the guy said, I was just asking.
I was just asking.
Right. And what he told our guy was that he said, look, I don't care. 5%, not a big deal. I just want the best person for the job. 5% didn't matter to him, and I think buyers, oftentimes might just ask because they think that's what they're supposed to do, unless you're dealing with a procurement officer whose job is to grind pennies, right?
Right.
I think sometimes they just ask because they want to feel like they're getting a good deal. But I think you absolutely blow up your credibility and integrity if you cave and you negotiate like that. What do you think?
There are so many places we could go with this, but absolutely. And there's I think a couple really, really important things here too, that if you're working with somebody who's a little bit more junior and you've told them what the price is, and then somebody who's their senior comes in and pushes on you and you cave when they ask, you really do a very nasty little disservice to this person that has been your friend who can get you in that company and expand the relationship, because now you've made them look like a moron to their boss. So I think it's, well, me, Shawn, I never discount. Like if somebody asks me for a discount, I find a way to add something else on and sell it all at a premium. But it takes a very special kind of approach to be able to get there. So I'm interested to hear. So this is the bonehead competitor. So what happened with your client? What did they say?
And then they're going to, I'm sure he'll go with my client. My client, he said, no, we're at 25%. Well, and then, talking further with them. So there's always a downside to getting a discount. There's always a downside. And so in this instance, the downside is, look, if you are looking for a candidate and I've got recruiters out there searching for a candidate, and they know that they get a percentage a piece of someone at 20%, or they get a percentage a piece of someone at 25%, guess where the best candidates are going to go?
They're going to go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
For your customers, there's always a downside to discounting and giving, caving. Not to say that you can't ever leverage that. I would leverage, so for instance, like in the manufacturing industry, I would leverage the entire deal in order with one particular price point, right? So,
yeah.
If someone said, okay, well, I'm paying this right now, but what can you do for me? Okay, well, let's take a look at your entire spend, and let's look at what you're spending over an entire year. There's always a place where you can leverage that. It's not a discount. You can get more. And then internally, you can adjust your margins, right? Where you've got better margins than others, where you can give and where you can take, but just discounting because your customer asked, you can't do that without giving up integrity and credibility, and your customer will suffer, pay a price. I see it all the time in the circle of consultants and entrepreneurs and business owners. They've discounted and done business because they really needed the money, the cash flow, and that's not their favorite business. It doesn't get their best attention. They don't put it on the forefront. So, I mean, you're always going to pay a price. You either pay it up front or you pay it on the back end if you are getting a discount.
Well, I think that's right. And, it's really interesting because the answer to the question, what else can you do, doesn't have to be, well, you know what? As a matter of fact, what else we could do is we're trying this new premium service and we'll throw that in for the first 3 months. And then when I write my deal, I say, this is pilot, but this is the regular price for it. And what's really cool is they get addicted to the thing that you threw in, that you gave them, and then they have to buy it full price when the renewal comes along, right? So I think there are a lot of things, what else can you do? We can give better payment terms. What else can you do? It does not mean your price. And I think it's different in the United States than, it would be really interesting to get Lee's take on this, because I think that there is negotiation expected in other countries. So I think this is a very US centric kind of conversation, but I think you really need to know what really is your price and say it, and then keep your credibility, keep your integrity. It's like you're an honest person. Well, actually the price really is $25,000. Like that really actually is the price. So, or 25%.
Right. And I think too, I had this conversation the other day with someone about when you introduce price. You should know if your customer can afford your services. Like that should be a huge part of your target customer pursuit and then your pre-qualification. And honestly, pricing should not be this big, like it shouldn't be this big reveal at the end. You should be surprised, it's a girl. No, it should be, I think you need to integrate these conversations along the way. I hate when people say, well, what's your budget? Well, I'm going to tell you my budget. Of course, no one's going to tell you your budget, but you need to be having intelligent conversations along the way about scope, price, deliverable scope. If you wait till the end, you're both going to be surprised. No. So
since we're boots on the ground, phone in the hand people, let's actually give some people like real world ways that you say those things. Because it's a little philosophical. You do have to bring that conversation up, but I think it's hard. And what is your budget? I don't know. Do you ever watch Say Yes to the Dress? Have you ever seen that show?
Maybe. It's been a long time since I've needed it.
A few years ago when I was getting married, I was really hooked on Say Yes to the Dress because, oh my God, it's just too horrible. But the managers would beat up on the salespeople when they'd come back to be pulling dresses, and they're like, well, what's their budget range? And they're like, I don't know. And they're like, you're not getting the sale. And you wasted everybody's time. And so anyway, so how do you suggest, I have some ways that I do it, but how do you bring up price and when, and what's your approach?
Well, in a pre-qualifying sense, a good way to do that in pretty much every industry I can think of off the top of my head is to ask them, what solutions have you used before? What have you tried before? As a consultant, if they've tried marketing agencies or advertising, I can get a good understanding of what they have spent on that before. Because then, and it's a good piece of that due diligence to understand what didn't work, because you don't repeat those mistakes. So if you can understand what vendor someone's using or what line of product they're using, you should know your competitors and you should know the approximate cost of those. So that's the first place I would start, to understand understand where they are with that. And then the next thing you could do too is once you have that comfortable relationship with someone, you need to be talking about the cash flow and how does this decision impact other business decisions? I don't think sellers do this enough. How does not having this product or solution, or how does this purchase of this product or solution impact the other decisions you're going to make? Because then you can understand, okay, this is a really, really big deal, or you know what, it's something we got to purchase. It's been in the budget. We've done it yesterday. Because you need to know your place in the food chain, right? That's another thing I would do.
It's good. So the way I like to do, well, first of all, you mentioned it, getting a sense of why somebody's going to be using the product. And it's so funny. We'll have to talk about this because I like it better in color, but these are the Irreverent Sales Girl's 8 great questions. Ooh. And I think you should come away, because Jack Koscoski kind of pointed to, somebody will be like, I crushed that call. And he's like, okay, what 5 questions did you get answered? And they're like, So I brought my 8 great questions. We'll do that in another episode. But one of them is definitely, getting to understand, what are you doing about this now? Why is it important to you? Gives you a sense of, what is it that they're looking at to either solve, or what other competitors are you looking at? You probably know your competitors' prices. But one thing that I like to say is I'm kind of getting a feel for this. I'll say, as we're talking about this, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because what we're talking about is probably a range of a $10,000 to $25,000 spend, or whatever the range is, right? Don't get hung up on the number, but we're looking at a range of 10 to 25,000. Does that make you want to throw up? Which, I really love to do that with people who, are going to be actually presenting this to their manager. I'm like, is that going to make your manager want to throw up? And it kind of adds some levity to the conversation. Mm-hmm. You can't say that with everybody, but you could say, we're in the 10 to 25,000 range. Are we in the same ballpark here? And that doesn't mean that somebody's going to get committed to it, but they've heard the numbers, you've heard the numbers, and you're all moving forward. So there may be a sense that, it's a way to talk about price early on. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I want to back up just a little bit in that no decisions are made in a vacuum. I think sellers get hung up on, do they have a budget for my product? Do they have a budget for my solution? Can they afford me? And that's all important to know, but no decisions are made in a vacuum. Right. If your product or service costs X, Y, Z, what other things are going left unpurchased? What you need to understand, what is the true cost of making this decision? That's another thing I talk about in customer currency, is that, your decision to buy your product or service means other decisions are being made. If you're less expensive, that means maybe they can afford to do something else. If you produce revenue, what does that mean that they can do in their business? If you are a premium compared to what they're looking at, and it's not in their budget, it's over their budget, where's that going to come from? Where's that going to give? You need to be having those types of conversations to understand how you really impact the business. It's not just about you and your budget and your product alone. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So, understanding that where you are on the food chain and how that affects that is so critical. But I just don't see sellers thinking that way. Do you?
Well, I think people are afraid to ask those questions. So I've been doing this for a gazillion years. And just yesterday, I was having this conversation. We're doing a complex sale. I had my 8 great questions ready. And, you're allowed to ask these questions, but it's always uncomfortable. I mean, it's always uncomfortable to ask, feel like you're getting too far into somebody's wheelhouse. They haven't served up the information, but you're in a relationship. It's okay for you to ask these questions. I think that's important for people to understand. I think it's important for people to understand that it is uncomfortable. Sometimes it is uncomfortable, and it doesn't have to feel pushy, but it's really important to ask the question that you want an answer, that you need an answer to move forward. And then have the courage to be quiet after you've asked the question and just wait for them to answer. Because a lot of times when you've asked a challenging question like that, of saying, well, what else is this going to impact for your budget this year? If you do buy this, what isn't going to get bought? If that's an important question to ask, it's probably something that they haven't been sitting there thinking about because they're, in a conversation with you. So what's hard is to be quiet, but you got to let their brain process for a minute. It's not like they have the answer on the top of their heads. So, pausing shows a lot of strength. And this gets back to, I think it's important to talk about price stuff, but I think it's also important to talk about other stuff, negotiation techniques. And I think you might be going into the monkey head part here with to be quiet. I'm really interested. What is it called? Monkey head?
The monkey spirit. No, that's another,
monkey mind or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
The monkey sphere.
Yeah. What's the monkey sphere?
It is the capacity you have to hold people in your sphere of influence. It's
okay.
Also called Dunbar's number, and I'll tell you about the research and everything in there. It's actually fascinating. But when we get into that, we'll talk about relationship selling and social selling and how you can impact people. But so back to negotiation.
Yeah.
Negotiation is easier and clearer if you do that part of it, right? If you're asking what else does this impact, and if you know more of that, then when you get to the end, there's not this big surprise. You've had the preview conversations about pricing, and And also if you're going at it as a collaborative partner with your clients or your customers, both contributing to the solution, it should not be a big surprise at the end, right?
Right.
No,
Nothing should be.
Yeah. So,
well, and that's interesting because, there's like negotiation, which I think a lot of people feel like, well, we're finally at the table and we're going to make a deal and we're going to pound this out. And there definitely is that aspect of negotiation, which is where this book really deals with, which I can't wait to share with you. But I think, along the road, as you're getting to know each other, as you're starting to sort of explore each other, there's negotiation that goes on at that time that can really drive the conversation to the result that you want at the end. And I think those are really interesting. And I think you've touched on them, what else is this going to impact in your business? And what else are you considering? But what are some other negotiation things that you can do before you're actually at the table? And then let's talk about being at the table.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think, I'll give you, for instance, from a consultant point of view, I really am transparent. I'll say, well, I'm going to build the contract in 3 phases. There's the getting to know you phase, then there's the execution, and then there's the follow through, ongoing long-term relationship piece of it. So also there's not a surprise about that.
Right.
I never negotiate on our fees or our price. I will move scope if needed, but the customer needs to clearly understand, this is what I recommend for you. There are maybe 1 to 2 things that I could move to the next phase or not add in here, and we can negotiate scope. The other thing you can do is say, no, not happening. I did that with my most recent client. I think he just thought he was supposed to ask. He said, okay, well, here's, we're walked through the proposal and here's the pricing and everything. And he said, okay, well, let's talk about this price. Let's negotiate. I said, I don't negotiate. And that was all I said.
Yeah. And then you be quiet, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Whoever speaks next takes the product home for a less price.
He said, okay.
Where do I sign? Well, it just shows such strength and power. And it almost feels like the customer can rely on you to really deliver, when you've got your thing.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. I think, new sellers, I think new business owners, I think entrepreneurs, I think a lot of folks think that they have to do that dance. And it's hard, especially in the first. You want those wins. You want those first sales. You need that business. But you have to understand that everybody loses if you discount your integrity. You lose credibility. They lose top-notch service. So, I'm not saying there's never an opportunity to negotiate. You can negotiate scope, you can negotiate value, you can negotiate up, whatever, but discounting because they want a better deal is not going to work. The worst is when they say, well, I'll switch to you if you can match your competitor's price. Well, I'm not my competitor. I wouldn't be sitting here offering you the same thing if I didn't think I had something better to offer you. So no.
Oh, I have a great story about that.
Okay.
It's just an absolutely delicious story about that. So I was negotiating with this is taking us to the table, right? We're at the table and you were talking about procurement. I don't know where they are. They're Fortune 20, right? So you pick which 20 you think it is. But so anyway, we're finally to the place where I'm talking to the procurement guy, and we're getting down to this one. It's not about price, but it's about some terms in the contract. And he says to me, well, your competitor is willing to do this and, play nice with us and do this. And I have to tell you, as a seller, it's cool to land a Fortune 20 logo for your company, and you feel like a macho thing. And, my heart starts racing, and like my throat's catching because I'm going to lose this deal to my competitor. Right. And that happens, I think, to everybody. But I just took a step back and I'm like, well, we can't do that. And he says, well, your competitor can. And I said, well, but then you'd be working with them instead of us. And he goes, argh! He's like, that's why we're having this conversation, because the business unit wants to work with you all. And dang it. Right. And he was so great. And in that moment, we became friends. And in fact, he even ended up writing me an email when he was retiring a few years later. And he said, the conversations I have with you were some of the most fun in my procurement career. And,
Wow.
you can really bring that to the table. Well, then you can't do that with everybody, but you got to get a really good sense of who you can have these conversations with. But yeah, then you'd be working with my competitor. And that was really fun.
That's awesome.
It was so fun.
That brings up such a good point that it just flew from my brain what I was going to say, because you set the tone. You set the tone for the rest of the experience someone's going to have with you.
Yeah.
And so if you discount simply because they asked you to discount, simply because they threatened you to go with the competition, they will hold that over you the entire contract.
Oh, you are hosed.
Yeah, you're hosed.
You just are. And you're in constant fear.
Yeah, because when someone else offers them a lower price, that you don't have the credibility or the integrity to stand on, because they've proven what they're going to do. So they don't value you enough to value your value. We say value. How many times do we say value? So they're going to ditch you whenever they can, and you will forever be on the back side of that, on the underside. What's the word I'm looking for? You will forever be on
your back foot for sure.
Yeah. So I have a similar story. I may have talked about this with the very large banking system, where they had a master contract for their collateral, their envelopes and business cards and such. And then they also had a master contract for digital print. And I was sneaking in every door.
Ninja Shawn.
I was sneaking in every door, picking up pieces and stuff, making my plan to make a move for the master contract, right? Because in every master contract with remote locations, you're going to have leakage. Corporations just really have a hard time enforcing master contracts if their vendors are not constantly in there selling and moving and getting to know people. A master contract, people look at, we've landed a master contract, they have to use us. A master contract is merely a hunting ground. It does not mean that you get all the business. It does not mean that. So I've been picking up bits and pieces of business, and scored a meeting with my office products partner with the director of materials management. And we knew, because we were doing all this business down here with the users, actual end users, that their company printing all their business cards and collateral materials just shut the doors. They just closed. So, if you've got a company of 10,000 people, you're always getting business card orders. So then a stack of, 50 to 100 business cards stacking up there. And he agreed to see us. That was clue number one.
Yeah.
So he was a crunchy, crotchety jerk. He really was, I'm going to talk down to you, and just, he's really a jerk. Gave us some old requirements to bid on for, business cards, but what they really needed was a system in place to monitor, this is highly regulated. You need to make sure Joe Blow doesn't put some crazy thing title on it, checks and balances. They didn't have that with this company either. And he just wanted to just grill me over price. He'd call me up and say, this is terrible. So finally I just said, okay, you know what? Obviously I cannot do what you need me to do. So stick with your current provider.
But we can't.
Oh, I can have a system up and running for you in a week, by the way. But you know what? I know that, gosh, you're getting just a hell of a deal here. You just better stick with your current provider.
Oh, it's so gorgeous. Isn't it so much fun when you get to that point and then just watch them do their dance to get you back to the...
Yeah. He said, no, wait. And I said, listen, what you think you're getting, what someone has said they sold you, is not the right thing. If you really want to get the right product and you want a solution up and quickly with a partner, I will do this, but I'm not going to be jerked around about price constantly. I had to clear the air, and they were a great client from then on. He was never anyone who actually touched anything, right? He just wanted to be the big jerk who, pulled somebody's strings. But if I had just kept going down that road, I probably would not have gotten the business.
Right.
It jerked me around for another couple weeks, wasting my time, pulling his power play or whatever. But you're always on your back foot, like you said. If you don't negotiate for a win-win. I mean, honestly, that's what I think it needs to be, is looking at it not from a negotiation of a winner and a loser, but you both still need to win. Customer, I can't afford your services. Okay, let's look at the scope, or what are you doing in other areas or something. Negotiate so that it's a win-win, not a you win, they lose, or they win, you lose. Don't discount, but I think of negotiation as, how can we both win here?
That's exactly right. All right, so let's get to the table. So we're at the table. We've done our negotiating up to here, but now it's like do or die, sign or don't, nailing out the last piece of the contract. What are some of your best techniques of being at that point in the sale?
You have to be confident. God, you have to be confident in what you can deliver, in your service, in your process, in your team. And you just have to be confident, and you have to be confident enough to walk away.
Yeah.
There's another sale. There will be someone. If you discount, and if you don't negotiate, a mutually exclusive deal right here, you are going to regret it. It will be bad business. It is going to be that thorn in your side forever. And you know what? You kind of have to learn that the hard way.
Yeah, for sure. I think you also really need to learn how to manage your managers. I feel very sorry for sales managers, because they're held accountable for your results, and they really don't have direct access to your results, right? So as an example, I was negotiating a $500,000 contract with a big old company, and it was a very nice size contract for our, an average size contract for us was 45 or 50 grand at this time, right?
Right.
So this is like a 10x deal, right? And I've just been working this thing impeccably. I've been doing the Shawn Ninja skills, like getting everybody on the same page and dealing with everybody. And we're at that point, and I've got the proposal out, and they haven't signed it yet. And it's been like 3 days since they've seen the statement of work, right? And my boss is freaking out. He's all, they'll never pay this. They'll never pay this. It's not, blah, blah. Like, we got to cut it in half. I'm like, just be quiet. Give me 2 more days. I need 48 more hours. And all I did with that 48 hours was nothing. I didn't email them. I didn't call them. I just waited. And 27 hours later, for the full price. Thank you very much. But you've got to manage your managers. You've got to learn how to just let it sit on their desk. You don't know what's going on with them anyway. No. But don't freak out. Just chill.
Yeah, and so a really big deal for you might not be a big deal for them.
Right.
Right. I mean,
that's such a good point.
You'd have to know where you are in their food chain. Like, yeah, $500,000. We need to do it. It's fine. It can sit there for a couple of days because I've got a, $10 million budget thing that we need to have 5 meetings about, or whatever. So right. Don't put your stuff, don't put your baggage on their airplane. Don't do it.
Oh, that's good. Don't put your baggage on the airplane. That's a great quote. We kind of get a little quote out there.
Yeah, that's such a good example. Just sit and wait, and you have to be able to walk away. You should have enough stuff in your pipeline that you could walk away. You should have
full pipeline cures all ills.
Yeah, exactly. A great pipeline cures all ills. I like that too. That's a good quote. A great pipeline cures all ills. You heard it from Dianna.
Well, but you really heard it from Jeb Blunt. That's really Jeb's. I can't steal it, but I would love to steal that one. I have some good ones, but that's not one. So mine is, this is actually another really important thing to learn from negotiation. So this is actually, I think, an Irreverent Sales Girl original. I actually think another author has stolen it from me more recently because I used to search it all the time and now it's showing up. But anyway, it's a good thing that God invented the last minute or nothing would get done. And, sometimes you just got to wait until their last minute. Like you said, you've got to know where you are in the food chain. It may not be their last minute yet. And oftentimes nothing gets done until that very important last minute. So be able to chill, go work on other deals, let that one sit there. If they've got something to ask you or they want to negotiate a price, they'll come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And dear God, for the love of everything holy, don't send a just checking in. What'd you think? See how it's going.
I'd like to just circle back with you.
Yeah. It's like you're infusing their computer with your desperation.
Oh, it just smells like crazy. So let me share this book with you.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So I don't even know if I can pull this up or if I should, but it's by Chris Voss, Voss. Let me just see if I can get it up here. It's called Never Split the Difference. Okay. Going. All right. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
I think. Here we go. Here we go. Share screen. See what's trending now. It must be the SellOut show. The SellOut show is trending now. All right. So this is the book. It's called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. And this guy is really intense. In fact, Will Barron has a podcast with him. So you got to watch this podcast. He actually gives you some techniques that I've used just from that webinar in my own sales that were actually quite magical. But what's so cool about this guy is, I don't know if he's still with the FBI or not, but he was with the FBI as a master hostage negotiator. Where it's not like you can never split the difference. Like, oh, you know what? You've got 4 hostages. You keep 2, I'll keep 2. But what's really fun about this book is, first of all, it's very tactical. This is not a strategic, philosophical conversation. In fact, it starts at the beginning with him beating the Harvard experts on negotiation, like leaving them at the table completely befuddled on some sort of role play stuff. Like, how did you do that? But why he can do this is because it's not academic. He has actually worked in situations where the stakes are high, you have to win, and you can't give something of substance to the other guy. And I think another reason why people would love to read it, and we don't get paid even a dime if you buy it, but another reason that you'll love to read it is that he demonstrates each of his negotiation tactics by giving a story about a hostage negotiation that he actually did. Oh. So it's got true crime. It's got all the good elements. Right. It's got true crime. It's got sales. It's got brilliant negotiation. I mean, it's really got something for everyone.
I love that. I think what I love about that too is that, sales is in every part of your life. Mm-hmm. I write every week on sales and selling, and my inspiration comes from everywhere. It's right. Goofy, relatable stuff for kids, your family. This weekend, I don't know if you saw it, talking about camping. I wrote that blog post tucked down in my sleeping bag. And I wrote about how selling was like building a fire. I'm constantly thinking about these things, but you can relate sales and selling to all sorts of different places in your life. That's why I think that's fantastic. Negotiation and hostages, how often do we feel like we're kind of in these do or die scenarios whenever we're, selling? We're desperate, or we really want this sale, or really want to close this thing. They have something we want. We have something they want. How do we make it, how do we trade off and stuff? And so, yeah, look around you and look at how everything in your life is about, communication, articulation, negotiation. It's all there. So, which brings me to the point of sales talk shouldn't be boring. Like we should all be able to have these conversations about things that are everyday life stuff and bring it back into sales.
Well, and you just said a really important thing that applies to this negotiation stuff. First of all, if you've ever tried to get your child to eat spinach, then you are in sales and negotiation. But it's really important what you just said, and I want everybody to hear what Shawn just said. You've got something they want, they've got something you want, but what's really interesting is you are probably wrong about what you think they want. If it's come down to hardcore, you're going to lose on price. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they actually want. And with this guy negotiating hostages, right? I'm only 3 chapters in, but, you know, one of the things they say they want is they want the $2 million in the helicopter and a year's supply of peanut butter, right? But that's not actually what they often want. They just want to be heard.
Right.
That their religion has been besmirched, or, you know, look, if you're an FBI investigator, don't be listening to me about my negotiation tactics. But what I'm getting to is what they're asking for is often not the need that you have that you can really satisfy. And that's why I won that $500,000 contract, because I knew my boss thought that they wanted what they said they wanted, which was media impressions. But I knew that's not what they wanted. They wanted a partnership that they could expand and show out in the community that they had a partnership with us. Like, we brought something beyond impressions.
Right.
We brought reputation, which they weren't taking into, which they were saying that they wanted impressions, and my boss was listening to impressions. But what I knew was what they really wanted was that relationship and that reputation. So listen to Shawn. And think about, what do they really want from this?
Yeah. Well, and you know, you have a better chance of knowing what they really want if you expand your relationships to more than just the one person that you're, you know, who controls the contract. You know, I would, do due diligence up and down the company, you know, selling to the C-suite or starting from the bottom, working your way up. I cannot underscore how important it is to have those relationships and to be able to have conversations with people who can tell you what the corporate climate is and what the culture is, and, you know, the backstory of what's really important and why it didn't work with this vendor, or what they really hated. You know, do they screw up the PO process? Talk to Tina from accounting. You know, having that stuff in your back pocket will help you in negotiation. It's not that they're not being upfront and saying what they want. They have all sorts of other things that they're taking into consideration. You want them to buy your stuff. They've got other stuff in consideration. So doing due diligence and having conversations, you know, with the 360, you know, buying circle around those folks is so critical. That will help you in negotiation.
And it's not always just the people in their company that you can talk to. I mean, if you happen to know consulting, get really great relationships with the consulting firms in your industry, because they can tell you stuff. Or, you know, maybe you'll find on LinkedIn that somebody that you're connected with used to be at that company. Right. And, you know, be appropriate about it, but, you know, feel free to ask questions about, like, what am I really running? What's the real story here? So I think that's right. You know, you got to get really interested in your customer.
Yeah. Imagine that.
I don't know. It's so crazy. And it's not easy. You know, I mean, we say that, but this is not easy work to do.
Oh, it takes really smart people. Seriously, it takes really smart people with emotional intelligence and savvy and grit. And I like that you say curiosity. It takes curious people to be in sales. Curious. So think about those traits and think about, what do I do to sharpen those skills, and how do I sharpen, you know, those traits in my own self to be a better salesperson.
That's so great. All right. Anything else for you about negotiating?
No, I think we've wrung that washcloth dry.
At least for this time. There's so much in there.
But you know what we would love? I would love, if you're watching this, I would love for you to comment below about, you know, some negotiation skill. Because again, I don't believe in technique. I think that selling is skill-based. I think technique is manipulation. We're not talking about manipulating people, but what are some negotiation skills you bring to the table? Let us know, because I think that's something that everyone wants to know. Everyone is constantly looking for, well, how can I do this piece better? So, and because your customers have been trained for years and years and years to push back on price. You know, they can't help it. That's the way they've been trained. They got to ask the question. They want to make sure they feel like they're getting the best deal. So if you have some thoughts about negotiation and how you can make it a win-win, leave those in the comments below.
Love us. Tweet us. Connect with us on LinkedIn.
Follow us.
But most of all, subscribe.
What's wrong with you? Subscribe. Come on.
Subscribe. It just is one little click and that little button down at the bottom of the screen. Okay. All right, let's wrap this up. So I will wrap this up by saying, stop hoping
and start selling.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh my